is Andrew with Mann Lake, and today I'm here with Everett Hendrixon, who is the North America Sales Manager for Dalan Animal Health. And we've got some exciting news and some information to talk about. And so let's just get right into it. How long have you been in agriculture?
So I've been in agriculture for 20 years or more. I started in horticulture with a nursery gig doing ornamental production and installation, and we dealt with some fruit trees, and that was my first introduction into bees, was the fruit tree nursery stock. From there, coming back to Florida, I ended up in agriculture and tomato production.
Okay, cool.
And we had tomato farms from Puerto Rico to the northern states, packing houses, all that stuff. And that's when my agricultural bug was officially lit to where I wasn't going to be doing anything else with my life if I could help it.
Sure.
And I've been in crop production and protection in different types of crops, all fruit and veg related, primarily in the southeast, but I've reached into the northeast and the Midwest and Idaho and out Pacific, PNW and those areas.
So with fruit and vegetable crop production, that's going to naturally bring you closer to bees.
That's right.
So let's get right into that. So how did you go from tomato crop production?
In amongst that journey, there was a startup out of Canada that uses bees for crop protection.
Okay.
And for fungicide use, so that you limit spraying and all the rest of it. And that's my introduction into bees. And so through that role and that gig, I have been in thousands of hives all over the U.S. Working on both bumblebee and honeybee hives and getting dispensers attached and all the rest of it. So that was my introduction into bees and into bee health, and to knowing a lot more about pollination, which oddly enough is really a big unknown relative to what we know in agriculture.
Sure.
Pollination is a weak spot.
Yeah.
And so getting into that field and into those professors' ears and all the rest of it, that led me into bees, which when Dalan had an opportunity like this, that is an animal health company applied to the honeybee, which for agricultural production, it was an exciting fit for me to get involved with something that I've never done before, but yet still in agriculture.
Sure.
And in something that's really future based.
For everyone watching who doesn't know about Dalan Animal Health, tell me about the company, how they came to be.
So it's a biotech company.
Okay.
So research was done in transgenital immune priming, which we'll get into later, which is an invertebrate function it's a function of invertebrates that allows us to apply this method to protecting them against disease. That was discovered, and through that process to go to the market commercially, what's the invertebrate that matters the most to agricultural production? And that was naturally the honeybee.
Sure.
So how do we find a solution that fits the honeybee? So the company's been in existence since 2018.
Okay.
And the process has been researched well before that. But the folks who discovered the process founded the company.
Okay, cool.
And so it's all our wagons are well circled there.
Tell me, in your words, why is this vaccine necessary?
First of all, I'll speak to the elevation of the reputation of the bee. When it comes to animal health, on the animal health scene, cattle, equine,
sure,
very highly focused on. The bee, not so much.
It's sad.
So one thing that Dalan has been able to do through all of this is really elevate the bee past the save the bee type of emotion, which is very important from a public level, but from a professional level and industry level, to look at the honeybee as an animal that we really need to take care of and protect the future of for food chain supply security is extremely important and a great byproduct of what we've been able to do by bringing this first ever technology to the market. So not that makes vaccination necessary, but it's just one of the byproducts that we've been able to do.
That's a very important point.
Because now you have much larger companies, global companies, looking at, okay, where can we be efficacious in making a honeybee's life easier and better and more
Sure.
productive.
Well, so have you seen, any current levels? Have you found any information that suggests that AFB may be more prevalent than we even think it is at this point?
So just for the audience and for clarity, AFB is American Foulbrood. And so it's a bacterial disease, Pentabacillus larvae, that if infected a hive, it's devastating, because legally in most places it's a burn-only option. Your only treatment once you get AFB is to burn your hives. Burn and bury, burn and quarantine, whatever the case is. So you've lost that entire investment, wood and ware, the whole 9 yards, gone. The research also shows out of Connecticut, UPenn, and Saskatchewan, Canada, recently, the most recent study in Saskatchewan, that AFB, or American Foulbrood, exists in more than 50% of the hives, but on a subclinical level, meaning we don't see the infection, we don't see the results of an outbreak in the hive, but it's there. And the bees have to hygienically take care of it and to keep it so that it doesn't further infect
So
the hive.
what you're referencing, like spores, like that
Correct.
spore
Spore
count.
load.
And we know that the spores never really go away.
Correct.
And that the antibiotics that are available on the market now, they don't really, they act to limit the spores. So with that, tell me, how is Dalan's vaccine different than treating how we've traditionally looked at Foulbrood disease through treatments like tetracycline, tetracycline, terramycin, TerraPro, TerraPatties, different pre-mixed solutions to treat it? Those limit the spores. So how is the vaccine different than that?
So we're moving beekeeping away from disease treatment and into disease prevention, so that if we don't have disease, we don't have to use these antibiotics if we don't have those problems. Now, from just an efficacious standpoint, if I don't use antibiotics, they can clean up a hive. There's no doubt about it. But they're not a panacea. Antibiotics have a lot of negative side effects, not only for the hive, but for the environment in general. And so, given that's the case, disease prevention and closing the gap so that the immune system in the bee is stronger to fight back things like AFB and other things, it takes all these necessary treatments off the table, so to speak.
Is the vaccine safe?
Absolutely. So, at least to our knowledge, and over 7 years of laboratory and field studies, we've not seen any negative side effects or unintended consequences. And what we're doing is we're taking a natural process and we're concentrating it into something the queen can then build up into her immune system that gives immunity to her.
So take us cradle all the way through. How's the process work?
Okay, so the vaccine is mixed into queen candy. So let's go back to queens. When they mate, so the queen hatches, she flies on a mating flight, she gets inseminated, she comes back, and she's either viable or not, right? And there'll be a 2-week or 2-month delay depending on the queen breeder and what they want to see. And if a viable queen, once her ovaries are developed, the vaccination process can begin. So the vaccine goes into the queen candy, which is a mixture of, your audience knows what queen candy is. And so
a mixture of sugar. It's a hard sugar candy, and most of us would be familiar with that when we're removing the sugar candy from queen cages or allowing the attendants and the bees in the hive to work their way through the candy to naturally release the queen. So that's where the vaccine would be administered.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep. And so the attendants will feed on that queen candy. The process is the bacteria, and we've seen this in laboratory dissections and everything else with efflorescence markers. The bacterium, so the vaccine itself is just dead bacterium in an aqueous solution. No GMO, no chemicals, no nefarious
that's important.
additives or preservatives or any of that nature. So that bacterium is ingested by the attendant, gets through their gut, into their fat bodies, into glands that produce the royal honey, or the royal jelly.
Royal jelly, yeah.
The royal jelly is then fed to the queen. That's how she's fed. The attendants will feed her. She then goes through that whole process, except the end point is now her ovaries. And so once her ovaries have a buildup of this, of the vaccine, of the particles of bacterium, all of her eggs are now immune to AFB.
Okay, so let's break that down a little further then. So I'm a beekeeper. I've got a vaccinated queen, and I can be assured that for the life of that queen, her offspring, her brood, would then in turn be vaccinated upon emerging. But that doesn't mean that I can have a vaccinated queen and then necessarily graft that egg to then make future vaccinated queens without vaccinating them, right? Okay.
The development of the ovaries is the key part of making
Sure.
P
Okay.
generational embryonic work.
Got it. Okay. And that's okay. Great. That's awesome. It's interesting. I mean, and amazing at the same time, because this could not only help immediately, but it could also be like a launching pad for additional things in the future. It's like the first step forward into something that's tangible and that we can actually start to try to control, like you said, to help that longevity and these important pollinators.
And a lot of folks listening might ask, why AFB and why not some other brood disease or virus? Globally, AFB is a huge problem. And so because of the antibiotic use that we talked about before, it's been artificially suppressed, specifically in the United States and Canada. We see that lessening, and when you see reduced antibiotic use, you see outbreaks of AFB.
You do, because they never completely remove. There's people have this assumption sometimes that if I'm treating with an antibiotic, I'm actually removing the problem. And all you're doing is putting a Band-Aid, and you need that Band-Aid, but that's all that it is. And when you stop treating with an antibiotic, it's not only your apiary, but you risk, because they germinate through wind, the spores, you risk what's called a Foulbrood bomb, right? Where you could affect potentially other hives around you indirectly.
Sick bees anywhere, given enough time, will lead to sick bees everywhere.
Sure.
We've seen it with mites, with the varroa, now we see it with the trophy mite.
Yeah.
We see it with different diseases.
We saw it with tracheal mite years and years before.
And you're going to see this circulate. AFB will recirculate back into the United States. It may take some time. But number one, it was proof of concept. Number two, it's a global issue.
Yep.
And number three, by taking burdens off the plate.
Yeah, you have less burdens to fight.
You asked earlier if it's safe and effective.
Yeah, yeah.
The safety is really regulated on our end by the Center for Veterinary Biologics. It's under the umbrella of the USDA. So the CVB, which issued the conditional license, says you have to perform a mountain of field studies to prove that you don't harm the bees.
Okay. Yeah.
And that you do what you say you do, that you're protecting against AFB. So we've run some of these massive trials, and we had, like I said before, we haven't seen negative side effects, but the positive side effects are really surprising to us. And so that data is under review. The regulatory agencies have to approve it, third party scientific community has to approve it, and we will be announcing some really exciting positive things, most likely very soon.
No, I mean that's very exciting, because it's we talk about it a lot, and you know, we talk about being proactive in beekeeping, and the more proactive you are, the better results you will have throughout the year. And what you're talking about fits within that concept of being proactive. With that being said, a lot of people have a love for specific types of bees, right? Whether it's an Italian breed or Cardiolan breed, Russian, some people are big believers into the Buckfast lines, different things. And I'm just curious, have you guys seen any differences on the vaccines efficacy from breed to breed to breed?
No.
Okay.
It's safe and effective across the board. It's no better or worse than any other breed that we've found in the commercial process. Now, to say that we've done every breed and we know for a fact that every breed is cut, we don't.
No, okay.
It's just the most commercially available that we've been applied to. It's even throughout the
And we were talking earlier, what overall hive health can do to our regular honey production. Right. And so I'm curious to know, how do you feel about that, adding in a proponent like this, if it could have a positive effect on, our brood production, our honey production, our honey yield?
So when it comes to honey production, first of all, it's safe. There's no vaccine residue that makes it into the honey. The honey, humidity, all those things have been studied, no difference. So it's safe. The production related to a stronger hive, preliminary data suggests that it's increased. What those numbers are, again, we have to prove out before we can, definitively say. Mm-hmm. But most likely you're going to see other hive benefits to stronger bees.
Sure.
Honey production being one of them.
Yeah.
And if you're able to take that first batch of honey and sell it, whereas you weren't before, if you did springtime treatments on antibiotics, then you're already 1/4 ahead of the game, 25% ahead of the game.
Yeah, you're recouping that honey production. And I agree with you in terms of, when people ask, how can I increase honey production? There's a lot of ways to answer that, because there's not one thing that you can do. Sometimes you could do everything and not achieve it. But I do think that, a stronger hive, and like you said, if you're getting your brood off to a faster start, if your queen is just healthier and has one or two less issues that is working against them, then it's not wrong to think that, our hives would just naturally be stronger and fight off disease better. Have more brood. More brood would mean more worker bees, more foragers, more field force.
And to be clear, the vaccine can, one vial or ampule is 50 queens. It's 50.
Okay, yep. So 50 queens, you could one vial can vaccinate 50 queens. Yeah. Okay.
And it does at one time. There's no microdosing. I can't take that vial and then spread it out over a couple of years and just use 3 or 4 queens at a time.
Okay, that's important. So when you if you purchase a vial and you're using it, you are planning on using it on 50.
So it is tuned toward queen breeders.
Yes, okay. And package producers, breeders, nuke producers.
But what we do at Dalan is, if it's going to go to the retail market, if it's coming out of Mann Lake, you need to be either doing it yourself, whether your process or the process from your queen breeders needs to be authenticated for us to be able to put our stamp on it and say, yes, this is a Dalan inoculated queen. And so we have an audit process with the different commercial guys that are raising these, and the package producers, the queen producers, if they're doing nukes. So that we are assured of the fact that they're following the process correctly, that their apiary is clean, that they have a good genetic line. Person can buy a vial and say, I have inoculated queens. But unless you're part of the ecosystem of Dalan and we've been able to audit your apiary, buyer beware.
So that, out of everything we've spoken about today, and we've spoken about a lot, that to me says that there's credibility there.
Correct.
Right, with the company. It's a direct to consumer in terms of the vial, but what you're saying is, for the whole audience, for everyone on the Broadway, that's watching or that hears about it, it's important to confirm, make sure that you know what you're getting. Correct. Because you guys have that in place.
Correct. Rarely have I seen a commitment on this level to taking care of the customer and the client, whether that's Mann Lake or whether that's Joe Smith that buys something from Mann Lake. Our beekeeper relations team, they've been involved with the research in this vaccine from before it came to market. They were part of the USDA, and we were able to hire them away from that, Amy Floyd being the person I'm thinking of there. And so the depth and the breadth of the knowledge that we bring as a team, no one should feel like they're not being taken care of. And we're always transparent with everything. I can say this, I can't say that. We don't know this. What we've seen is that we're very honest and open with where we are with the data and where we are with the field efficacy and all the rest of it. And so, but that commitment to the client is, one of the biggest reasons that I thought I can succeed with this group.
If people wanted to learn more, not only about this product, but Dalan in general as a company, and you guys have a website, what is that website?
Dalan.com.
Okay, and then you guys also have a newsletter.
It does come out monthly in most cases. It doesn't necessarily come out on a specific date because we want to sometimes we have to hold back until we get authorization to provide more, an award that we might win this week. So we're going to push out the newsletter.
Right.
But it has some interesting anecdotal things about vaccine, and it has some profiles about us, just general company info. But it also has these major announcements.
I love it. I can't wait to hear more. Everett, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.